In fact, in heaven, the angels vie with each other in order to give God greater glory. So in this sense, there is a good, wholesome approach to seeing God within oneself, and that is human, right? But not without the divine. Okay, now.
Glory to God in the highest.
Hi, thanks for tuning in to Everything Catholic again. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here again with us. And hopefully all of you will learn a lot of useful stuff from this video. Now, as you know, we've been sharing a lot of clips of Father Joseph Iannuzzi here with you, apart from focusing on the lives of the saints. And what I would like to do in this video is share this clip of Father Iannuzzi talking a little bit about the human, divine, and eternal state. I'm sure all of you will be learning a lot from this one, so please listen to this.
The human state, to recap very briefly, in the writings of this mystic Saint Teresa of Avila and the mystic Saint John of the Cross, the human state is basically the state of a toddler, of an infant, of a spiritually immature human, even a baptized human. Basically, the human state is one who reasons for itself, thinks for itself, and works for itself. It's very egocentric. So a toddler, when it does not get what it wants, it holds its breath, right? It stamps its feet. Now this is an interior state of immaturity. God weans the soul from this human state with time, with grace, to a divine state. That is, a state when it begins to think more of God's interests than its own, more of God's interests in its neighbor than its own. So it becomes more altruistic, okay? Now, the eternal state encompasses both the human and the divine. It encompasses the divine in the sense that it acts, thinks, and prays for God, for others, in the interests of others. This is charity, right? And it encompasses the human insofar as it serves also its first neighbor, which is itself. Remember, human encompasses both the egocentric, which is not good, and also the altruistic, which is good. Yes, the divine brings to perfection this altruistic attempt, this altruistic method of thinking, acting, and praying, whereby it thinks less of its own interests than those of God or its neighbor. Okay? Now, even in its human state, the soul is being weaned by God more and more to become like God. So while it leaves behind the bad part of the human state, that is the egocentric way of thinking, acting, and praying, right? It is also encompassing in that human state the good elements of being human. That is, by seeing within itself God. So it has a healthy self-respect, okay? And the saints, in fact, used to compete in a holy way. For example, without it being egocentric. Consider Padre Pio, Saint Padre Pio, okay? He would compete in a holy way, not in a selfish way, with other monks in praying the rosary. How many? They would have a little, jokingly, a little competition. And one would walk down the corridor and say to Padre Pio, 8, meaning I said 8 rosaries. And Padre Pio would reply, 14, meaning he said more. Now there's nothing wrong with that, right? In fact, in heaven, the angels vie with each other in order to give God greater glory. So in this sense, there is a good, wholesome approach to seeing God within oneself, and that is human, right? But not without the divine. Okay, now, when I say the eternal embraces both, this is what I'm referring to. Not the egocentric human, but the holy human way. When we die, remember, and we go to heaven, God willing, God does not destroy our human nature. The human remains for all eternity. We remain human creatures throughout eternity. We don't become angels. We become saints, confirmed in God's grace in the beatific vision, while retaining our human creaturehood. That is important, okay? Now, the eternal is different from the human and divine in this sense. While the human is focused on the individual and the divine on neighbor, right, the other individuals, the eternal takes the two and elevates them to an eternal mode. What does that mean? If I were to do something for myself, that is, go to Mass, that is, do holy mortification, go to confession, I'm helping myself. That's a human approach, and that's okay, and that's good. And then when I do it for others, right, altruistically, that is also helping my human neighbor, but it's also something that helps not just me, but someone else. Okay? Now, up until now, helping myself or helping my neighbor, I'm acting in time and space. That is, I cannot go into the past and I cannot go into the future so long as I'm praying in the human mode or in the divine mode. Okay? Saint Teresa of Jesus speaks of the first 4 mansions as a human mode of praying, thinking, and acting. She speaks of the 5th and 6th and 7th mansions in her pursuit for perfection as the divine mode of thinking, acting, and praying. Now, up until now, in the soul's human or divine mode of thinking, acting, and praying, it cannot go into the past or into the future and impact other humans at all. It is not until God bequeaths to the soul his own eternal state. Remember, God has neither beginning nor end. He is eternal. When he gives the soul the gift of living in his divine will, he bequeaths to it his own method of praying, of acting, of thinking. The divine and eternal and the human coalesce. So the eternal absorbs the human and the divine and brings it to an eternal level whereby, whether the soul prays for itself or for others, or does good deeds for itself or for others, it is doing it in an eternal way, whereby, although its prayers are impacting people in the present, they're also exceeding the present. While they are immanent, they are also transcendent. The eternal basically diffuses one's own thoughts, words, and prayers throughout time and space and in eternity.
Well then, that will be all for the video this time. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us, and hopefully all of you have learned so much from this video. And remember, if ever you have any feedback or suggestions,